How's it
Um,
going?
yeah, well, I've been listening to this, this new album, really enjoying it today. The
Thanks.
first thing that struck me, The Gang's All Here, by the way, is the album. It came out latter part of last year. Is that right?
Yeah, October.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll definitely put a purchasing link just below this video.
awesome.
Was it a conscious effort to kind of sonically reference the early Skid Row albums with this record?
Well, I would say reference when Nick Raskulinecz, our producer, came on board, he told us he wanted to make his favorite Skid Row record because he was a fan before he was ever a producer. So he was in his late teens, uh, early 20s, just like we were. He's only a couple years younger than us, and it
Slave to the grind.
yeah, and it was like, and the first album especially was his favorite record. So he uh he wanted to make his favorite Skid Row record. And when that was his word to us, he goes, I just want this record to be a kick-ass rock and roll Skid Row record. And it needs to sound like Skid Row. He just said everything to us that we needed to hear. Like, I like the stuff you guys have done, but this is in my memory banks. This is for a fan, a song and an album are photographs in time, right? It's like if I had the chance to produce someone like Kiss or something like that, I'd be like, oh, I know, I want it to sound like Rock and Roll Over. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
And so that was Nick's perspective, and he really had us retrace our steps, which was not easy. Being in the business and being around as long as we have, it's really not that easy. I thought it would be easier, but he got us there, and it was a big help in bringing Skid Row to sound like the Skid Row people remember.
Absolutely. I mean, what was it like working with Nick Raskulinecz, if I said his name correctly? Because he's worked with so many great bands. I mean, he worked with Rush, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, what did he bring to the project, do you think?
Yeah, Rush, Foo Fighters, Hailstorm. Yeah, so many bands. As the list goes on. But
Alice in Chains, didn't he work with them?
Alice in Chains, Stone Sour, Slash. Man, all I know is there's a lot of platinum on his wall. And he's worked with a lot of newer bands, a
Yeah.
lot of active rock bands, which is really cool. Working with him is like working with a force of nature.
Wow.
He his honesty is something that every band should experience. I mean, we'd walk in. I know one time I walked in with the song I wrote, and I thought it was a really good song. And he basically looked at me and went, man, what else you got? And I was like, wait, what happened? He's like, I'm not feeling it, man. I'm not feeling
Uh,
it. And we put a lot of trust in Nick because of his approach to everything. And it was very important that we did. And it worked. It worked out great. And we can't wait. We have never been a band to have a record just about getting ready to release and already started working on new songs, and we've done that. We're starting to stockpile songs because we
yeah.
just can't wait to get in the studio with him again and see what
Mhm.
he does to him and see if he tells us it sucks or not. So
Right.
yeah, but it was great. He's very creative. His memory, like we could rehearse and do pre-production and then break for 2 weeks and come back and do a song again. And he'd look at me, he goes, you played that part different last time. I'm like, okay. And everything is recorded. Everything is absolutely recorded in case we really get stuck on an idea. It's like, wow, I really don't remember what I did. And he was just really, he's an old school producer, even though he's young. He produces like, yeah, man, let's take this song. It's a good song. Let's make it great. Take it apart. And you had to really, with all that trust, you really had to just let go of your ego.
Right. Right. I mean, you're working now with Eric Gronwall. Have I said it correctly? Gronwall?
Grown yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, years ago. I saw a band called Heat, and he was the singer. He's absolutely fantastic. I mean, how did you get it? How did he get involved with this band?
He was opening up for Skid Row on a tour, I believe it was the UK,
Right.
and I originally heard his voice when I had to approve the video spot for the tour video spot for to go out online and stuff like that. And I heard his voice. I was like, wow, this guy, I like where his voice sits. Like, I like his range. And that was about it. And then they came out and I listened and watched a couple shows and I was like, man, this guy's got some pipes, you know? And then later on, I found out about that he won Sweden Idol and whatnot. And that's cool. But for what he was doing, I thought his voice fit really well. And so in the back of my mind, I'm like, maybe I'll hit him up. We'll exchange numbers, maybe a side project somewhere down the road. That never happened because they always left the building before we were done, or right after we were done. And it just went, when it came to last year, to the point where we knew we were going to make a change. It just so happened he had did a remake of 18 in Life. And I'm like, well, this is a pretty good audition. We know this guy could sing live and we know he's got the pipes and the energy and he's a good front man. Yeah. So let's give him a shot. And we did. And we sent them a couple songs off the record with a guide vocal and they came back and they were kick ass. And we were, then we asked him, it was just the three of us on the phone, Snake, him and myself. And we said, do you want to be the new singer for Skid Row? And he said, yes. And, you know, just the three of us. And we were like, cool, we got something cool going on. Let's do this. You know,
when I saw Heat a few years ago now, I think it was about 2013, something like that. I remember thinking that this guy sounds like a very young Bon Jovi. Am I the only guy that thinks that, do you think?
I could see little traits here and there. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. His musical palette is very expansive, like, because his dad was a musician. So I guess he turned him on to a lot of 50s and 60s stuff. Right. And, you know, I'm a kid of the 60s and 70s. So it's really cool to have someone that's, you know, 20 some years younger than you, and you could vibe on the same music, which is really cool. So I think there's a lot of influences in there, and we would kind of give him ideas. Like, we were just sending him new songs. We never got in a room with him because of COVID restrictions and all that. So he was just recording at his home outside of Stockholm. And it's like, okay, dude, just think kind of, you know, Brian Johnson, like his approach, not to sound like him, but just think of his approach. And that being one of his, Bon Scott and Brian Johnson being one of his favorite singers. He was doing backflips about it, you know? But yeah, I mean, any musician or singer, you could hear their influences come out every now and then. And yeah, I could hear John come out and Eric here and there. Yeah. Especially with Heat. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought I was maybe the only one who ever heard that, possibly. But we talk about some of the songs on the album. I was this, Not Dead Yet. It feels very spontaneous almost. It has a kind of that sort of feel to it. Was that intentional?
Well, it was pretty damn spontaneous. We needed more songs. Nick was like, okay, we have a finished record, but is it really finished? He goes, we need here, and he gave us his choices of the 2 or 3 songs, 2, I think. He goes, we need two songs better than these 2. So we left rehearsal that day, or we left the studio that day. And I came home and just came up with the riff for Not Dead Yet. And we went into, now this is before he was in the band. Eric was in the band. And we went into rehearsals the next day. I made a quick demo in my studio and sent it out to everybody. And yeah, and then we started coming up with melodies and a couple lyrics here and there. And Nick came in and loved it. He's like, let's rearrange it here and there. And he looks at me, he goes, get these lyrics done by tomorrow. so I was like, damn, Mr. Rusculinix, you know? So yeah, that's a good, you know, that's a good call. That it was definitely more spontaneous. We have never written songs in a rehearsal like that in our career. It was always, we bring stuff in pretty precise and pretty done.
sometimes songs that are quite spontaneous like that have a certain energy to them. You know, it's
Absolutely.
I'm reminded Deep Purple, Black Knight. That was a spontaneous thing. They stole the riff, Ricky Nelson, Summertime, then just built the lyrics around it.
I
You
love
know, you
that.
listen to Ian Gillan's lyrics, they're just you can just tell they're made up on the spot virtually. But it's
Yeah,
incredible energy.
most of Machine Head was pretty much just done on the fly. Smoke on the Water is about like the 2 nights prior lyrics to them being in
Yeah,
where were they? Geneva? Something. But
that way.
yeah, and then they
There was no
and
studio trickery on that album either. You know, apart from
no,
the Highway Star vocal bit that's the only bit of
yeah,
studio trickery employed for that album. It's a
that's
remarkable,
right.
isn't it?
And whenever a young bass player asks me, got any advice? I go, yeah, pick up Machine Head by Deep Purple and learn it from front to back, because that's what I did. Because Roger Glover's bass playing is absolutely insane, and that teaches you that taught me when to dig in and when to lay back and get out of everybody's way, get out of the melody's way, get out of the drum. It's anyway. I could talk about Deep Purple and that album all day.
Yeah, one of the very early gigs I went to many years ago when I still had hair was Deep Purple, the Mark II lineup of Deep Purple. When they reformed in 1985, that was a fantastic gig. Seeing Blackmore on
Wow,
stage with them,
wow,
fantastic.
yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Another song on the album I'm intrigued we could talk about is October's Song. It's
Mhm.
a lovely title. I mean, what's the meaning behind that one?
Well, that song is about loss. At that point, it's funny. Snake and I were writing the music, and we were working on it in my studio, and we didn't have a title because there were no lyrics, there was no melody, and we usually don't do things that way. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But um, it was in October, so just to hold its place in Pro Tools, so when we went back to work on it more, we knew what to look for instead of just a file number. So I wrote an October song,
Okay.
and it kind of stayed that way because it ended up lyrically, the literal sense is the first verse. ZP and I and Snake wrote the lyrics, and the first verse is about ZP, the loss of ZP's mom. And then the second verse is the loss of my father.
Okay.
So as we're doing this and putting the demo together, I go, it was I forget what the conversation was, but we're like, wow, this is really cool. This is a really cool tribute to our parents.
Yeah.
And I go, what are we going to call this song? And Z was like, I think we should keep it October Song. I was like, why? He goes, because my mom's birthday was October 18th. And I'm getting chills now too, because that's my father's birthday as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we had no idea at the time that our parents both had the same birthday, different years, but the same day. And so we're like, October it is, October Song it is. And we kept it. And, all the guys were into it. And it's become, um, it, a lot of people are reacting to that song. And like I always say, when we write a song, we write what we're thinking, but we kind of just give you the paint, the brush, and the canvas. You go to town, whatever you think, whatever comes out of the song for an individual, listener is okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking the title October's Song. I was thinking of something coming to an end, like autumn or fall, as you guys call it.
Yeah.
The end of the kind of the end of something, really. That's what. So I had to ask you about that title and that song generally. But it's a great song.
Thank
Really,
you. Thank you. We're very, very proud of it.
it
It's
should
the
be.
longest song we have ever written or recorded. And we cut like 3 minutes off it too.
Should let it run. I mean,
There's only so much room on a vinyl record, right?
Yes, yes, that's true. We're going back a bit. Doc McGee managed you, didn't he? Doc McGee. That's right.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that how you got on the Bon Jovi tour? And what was it like? What was that like?
Oh man, that was great. Snake grew up with John and Richie, and then we all became friends after when we were doing the record. But Doc, we signed on with Doc about 88. And yeah, he it's funny, just got off the phone with him about 10 minutes ago. We're still good friends and whatnot. But he Yeah, it was really cool. That tour was amazing because it was called the Brotherhood Tour for
Right.
good reason, because every band member, we were all friends with each other, especially the guys from Jersey and New York. We knew each other, or we saw each other play at one time or another. But when it came to that tour, and they called it the Brotherhood Tour, as a brand new band that no one really knows except for, like, the Jersey Shore and up into the Northeast a bit, to be part of something called a brotherhood with a band that was as huge as Bon Jovi was at the time. And outside of that, that really said, okay, there's more to it than just a tour and being on the road together. This is truly friendship,
Yeah.
and it made me feel really good, and being a part of the whole thing. And it sent this band into the stratosphere.
Yeah, I bet. I remember I used to be a big Kiss fan back in the day, and I
Mm-hmm.
went to see Kiss on the Animalized tour, which was going way back to '84, I think it was.
Yeah.
Guess who was the support band on that tour?
Bon Jovi.
Jovi. It was, yes. That was, because they'd only put their first album out, which is still my favorite Bon Jovi album to this day. Actually, that first record.
Wow.
I
I
love
saw
it.
them open for Rat in New
Oh, right,
Jersey.
okay.
Yeah, Rat was headlining and Bon Jovi opened. I'm assuming it was like 7,800 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that's its follow-up
Yeah,
album, isn't it?
yeah, because that was when Rat really blew up. And what was that? Out of the Cellar with Round and Round and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. That's right.
yeah.
I just think Bon Jovi with Richie Sambora on guitar were just something else, way back in the day, and absolutely brilliant. Next question for you. You probably already answered this actually. What's the greatest Kiss album?
Oh, Rock and Roll Over for me. That's the be all end all record for me, man. It's just the sound of it, the songs themselves, and so many good songs on that record. Like
Right.
I can't point out a song that I would lift the needle and skip,
No.
And that's coming from a very hardcore Kiss fan,
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it would be Rock and Roll Over. Kiss Alive changed my life though too. So
And Creatures of the Night?
I like that record a lot. I think it's really good. I think lyrically they took it up quite a few notches. I Still Love You. That song,
Yeah.
that song is incredible. It's like
Yeah.
a scary, haunting, sad song, but
No.
it's heavy. It's hard to describe, and lyrically, I remember sitting there going, wow, these are really powerful lyrics. If there's one person that that hasn't felt like this, that says they haven't felt like this,
Yeah.
you're friggin' lying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said one of my favorite Kiss albums is Destroyer. Is Destroyer a Kiss album or a Bob Ezrin album?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's obviously Kiss molded by Bob Ezrin. Well, he really, hearing now that all the demos are out and you could listen to them and you could hear how different they are. You could hear how much he was involved, or I'm assuming how much he was involved to do it. And you hear all the horror stories about it. But as a Kiss fan, I really don't care about the horror stories. I just know when I first put that album on, I was kind of like taken aback. I was like, wait a minute, with the whole thing with Detroit Rock City, there was the only time I ever heard things like that were on a Cheech and Chong record, or like a comedy record where they're acting out a scene. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then all of a sudden it comes in, and, the first thing I remember sticking out is when in the chorus, dun, 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 that. And I'm like, is there a piano in there? I was like, Kiss doesn't have a piano player. And I got really offended. And then all of a sudden I was like, wow, this is so great. And then, all the orchestration on it was just something that a Kiss fan was not used to, and I don't think was ready for. But
No,
I
that,
mean,
that was
that
the
took
first
them.
Kiss album I bought, actually, that one.
That was the first one you bought?
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
God of Thunder and all that on. It was my kind of introduction to the band, and it's the album
Yeah.
because of that's the album that my kind of go-to Kiss album.
Yeah.
Going back to Skid Row, of course, I'm just interested. What's the writing process like for this band? I mean, how do the songs actually come alive?
Well, Snake and I write the bulk of things, you
Okay.
know, but everyone contributes. You know, it's not a Skid Row song, and I'm not saying other guys don't write. You know, Scotty obviously has co-written on a lot of songs in our career, and still does. Um, we this is how we'll bring it to the game. You get a pretty good read on if everyone's into it or everyone's not. It sucks when you think you got something really good and the guys are like, meh, but we trust their opinion
Yeah.
and we do make changes. It's always with this band, it's always best idea wins, you know, if ever, and by best idea, I mean, all five of us get lit up about it. But like I said, we or someone individually could bring a song to the guys and it's a song, but then when it leaves the room, it's a Skid Row song, obviously, because you have everyone putting their feel into it and their ideas into it. And that's when it truly becomes a Skid Row song.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Um, you played Slave to the Grind in its entirety, I think, recently on a tour. I mean, what was it like playing that album after all these years? And how do you feel about these kind of album tours that bands do these days?
I think it's pretty cool. We did it. We did it, I think, 2 or 3 times, and it was fun. Um, it was kind of weird because it's a completely different energy, you know, and especially with Slave to the Grind, because that album was basically the point where our demographic, like live demographic, went from about 50-50 male to female to about 20-80 male. So
Right.
now here we are 30 years later and we're playing the whole thing, and everyone that's in the crowd is just like, you can see all the women's like asking their husband, what song is that? You know what I mean? So it was cool though. It was really cool to dig out some of those songs. I mean, I think there was 1 or 2 that we never played live. So it was really cool to go and dig in and learn those songs again. It was fun. It was fun, and we had the original backdrop in storage all these years. And I
Right.
remember we spread it out on my front yard, and it took up the whole damn yard. So we had to pull it out into the street, and my neighbors had to drive around it to go up their driveway. But it was musty and smelly, and a
Yeah.
lot of the paint chipped off. But we were like, it's kind of cool. It kind of shows the age, and just to go
Yeah.
out using the original backdrop is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. You were on the bill once with Motorhead. I'm interested. Do you have any interesting Lemmy stories?
Lemmy's the best. We were the first time I ever did a NAMM show. For those who aren't familiar with NAMM, it's a National Association of Music Merchants, and they have a big convention every year in Anaheim. It's usually this time of year, in January. It's not in 23 for some reason. It's in the summer, but um, so we had met at shows, and he was always so cool and so nice, and we happened to use the same strings at the time, the same bass strings. So we kept passing each other, like going to do the signings. Hey man, what's going on? What's going on? But Bass Player Magazine, I believe it was having a round table. So all the Dean Markley string endorsers, that was my old string company. Um, it was a round table. So it was Lemmy, myself, people like Will Lee from the Letterman band, um, uh, Chuck Rainey, who played on so much amazing, like the TV show stuff, to just incredible studio work. A few other studio guys. So I would say there was about eight or nine of us. Um, I felt really out of place. I'm like, I'm just in an American rock and roll band. You got these guys that are just
Yeah.
like such
Yeah.
hardcore players and whatnot, and just different mindsets. Um, so it was about 11 in the morning, and I had been out with friends the night before till about 8 in the morning,
Okay.
and I was so hungover, it was unbelievable. So I run into Lemmy, and he's like, he's like, man, you don't look good. And I was like, I don't feel good. I just hope this interview goes quick. And we all sit down, and it's literally a round table.
Yeah.
So this is the best Lemmy story I got. So our string rep comes in. He's like, does anybody want anything for breakfast? And I'm just like, I'm listening to people order eggs and egg white omelets and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm good. And I just have my head down on the table. I'm like, I'm fine, just some water. And I hear Lemmy go, can I have a bottle of Jack Daniels and some ice, please? I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. And I thought that was so rock and roll. At the same time, I was thinking, if I smell that, I am going to heave all over everyone's breakfast. So anyway, he brings it up, and I hear him, and they're going around, they're asking the same question to everyone, and I would just pop up and be like, yep, and I'd answer my question. I'd just kind of put my head back down. At one point, I just hear this bottle sliding across the table, and it just bumps into my hand, and I look at Lemmy's going like that, like, you need some of this. And I was just like, and he was right, I felt great.
Yeah.
And then we went and did a photo shoot together and got a lot of laughs out of that. And every time we ran into each other, that story came up. So he was a great man. He really was.
Yeah.
And he was a big fan of rock and roll, and never ever judged a person for the band that they were in, where a lot of guys would be like, oh, they're in this band, they want to be friends. Lemmy never ever did that, ever.
Yeah. Well, I've seen quite a few documentaries and stuff, and he seems quite like a pretty cool guy. I mean, I remember seeing Motorhead on their 10th anniversary tour, which would have been 85, something like that. They were supported by Wendy O. Williams from the Plasmatics.
Yep.
Because we've passed away a few years ago now, but that was a loud gig, I can tell you that.
I bet. You're still ringing.
Well, one of the loudest gigs I went to, actually. I went to see Kiss again on the Crazy Nights tour, and that was obscenely loud. I think things don't seem as loud now as they used to then. I don't know whether it's health and safety legislation that says everything has to be lowered down a bit. I don't know. But things don't seem to be as deafening as they used to be. Especially in the UK.
Kiss was definitely one of the loudest concerts. So let me see. What was it? I'm about 10 rows back. I lucked out and just got a good draw on tickets, and I was about 10 rows back.
Yeah.
So Crazy Nights, was Bruce still in the band for Crazy Nights?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, my friends and I were on Bruce's side, and when we were driving home and it got quiet in the car, everyone at the same time was like, oh, my ears. And they were just ringing for days. That and Ozzy was really loud too when I saw the Bark at the Moon tour. That was incredibly loud. Wow.
Yeah. I felt like I had somebody's fingers stuck in my ears for 2 or 3 days afterwards. It was pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
We touched upon bass playing, really. The bass sound on this new album is really quite prominent. It's quite heavy, actually. It's absolutely wonderful. Was that down to you, or was it down to the producer of the mix?
Nick and I work together on the sound. I use a lot of the same stuff I use in the studio. My Galleon Kruger head. I forget exactly what cabinet. I think it must have been a couple of FVTs. And then we ran one channel to a separate channel with a little bit of distortion on it. But yeah, Skid Row, the bass has always been kind. There's a few bands that do it. Obviously, Kiss does it. You always hear what the bass is doing, and Guns N' Roses, you always hear Duff's playing, and the Beatles, obviously. Mm-hmm. So it was just kind of how I always listen to music, and it's kind of always been that way with Skid Row, and Nick liked it like that. And so we we're a very dynamic band, so it's like playing wise, like we know when to, like I was saying before, we know when to hold back, we know when to shine, and so it kind of makes things easier that way.
Yes. So touching on that question, who's the greatest bass player?
Okay, so all around greatest. I mean, My biggest influences, obviously, I mentioned Roger Glover,
John
Gene
Entwistle?
Simmons, John Entwistle's in my top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
I never really, I like guys that, I was a late bloomer with the Who, but so like bass playing wise, I love guys that walked, you know what I
No.
mean? And
No.
that there were patterns to follow and stuff like that. But that's my preference, you know? So it was Gene Simmons and Paul McCartney and Roger Glover and Dennis Dunaway from Alice
Yeah.
Cooper's band.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Graham Maybe, who played in Joe Jackson's band. That's probably my top five. And then as time went on, you know, there's people like that probably listen that have these same influences, like Mike Dirnt. He's an amazing bass player.
Yeah.
Robert DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots. All these guys are incredible bass players that just do more than just pedal through a song, you know, but they pedal when it's time to just bump, you know. John Entwistle is a freak of nature, not of this
Right, yeah.
world. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
He's incredible. He was, yeah, and he's incredible. And I had the opportunity to meet him in Japan, and he was a really funny guy. And we drank some bourbon together, and
Yeah.
or some scotch, I think it was. And it was it was pretty great to come home and tell my friends that I met John Entwistle. You know.
Yeah, seeing the Who with John Entwistle was something else. You know, the way that playing it just reverberated. I saw the Who do Quadrophenia in London, Hyde Park, and the sound and that bass was
Wow.
fantastic. It's just really cool. Anyway, thank you so much for doing this interview. I mean, I hope you sell loads of copies of this new album. It's a great record. Where are you based? Are you in New York then?
Thanks, man. No, I'm outside of Nashville. I am a Northeasterner. I'm from New Jersey, and I do live up there part time, but my base is just outside of Nashville, Tennessee.
So you must be a big Springsteen fan then.
I am most of the stuff. It's a prerequisite to grow up in New Jersey. They give
No,
you a copy of Born to Run as you're born.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Anyway, thank you so much for doing this. As I said, I'll put a purchasing
Thanks,
link
man.
just below this video. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You as well, man. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
All right, bro. I'll see you.
Bye.